Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering that this small copper coin could be worth far more than 1 cent. It sounds unlikely, but for some collectors, the 1964 D Lincoln penny has become a quiet treasure hiding in plain sight. The 1964 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny is one of those coins that most people have seen but rarely paid attention to. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary penny. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the classic wheat ears design on the back. But behind that simple appearance is a story tied to a pivotal time in American history, a story of transition, massive production, and subtle details that can make a big difference in value. To understand this coin, we have to go back to the early 1960s. The United States was facing a coin shortage. People were hoarding coins, especially silver ones, because the value of the metal was rising. The government needed to produce more coins quickly to keep the economy moving. In 1964, the U.S. Mint responded by dramatically increasing production across its facilities, including the Denver Mint, which is represented by the small D Mint mark on the coin. The 1964 D Lincoln penny was struck in huge numbers. In fact, billions were made. This means that, in general, the coin is not considered rare in the traditional sense. However, as many collectors know, rarity is not always about how many were made. It's about how many survive in certain conditions and whether any unusual variations or errors exist. The coin itself is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It has a rich, warm tone that many collectors prefer over the modern pennies, which are mostly zinc. When you hold a 1964 penny, it feels slightly heavier and more solid than today's coins. That alone gives it a certain appeal. On the front of the coin, you'll see the right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design created by Victor David Brenner. Above Lincoln's head are the words, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word liberty, and to the right is the year 1964. Just below the year, you'll find the small D Mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the iconic wheat ears design, which had been used since 1909. The words 1 cent appear in the center, with United States of America below it. At the top is the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum. This design would soon be replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial reverse, but some 1964 coins still carry that classic wheat style depending on context collectors discuss. Most 1964 pennies, however, feature the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, marking a more modern look. So if billions were made, why does this coin still attract attention? The answer lies in condition and errors. Most 1964 D pennies you find today are worn from circulation. They've been passed from hand to hand for decades. But if you come across one in mint condition, meaning it looks almost exactly as it did when it was first made, its value can increase significantly. Collectors use a grading system to evaluate coins. A coin in average circulated condition might only be worth a few cents. But a 1964 D penny graded in uncirculated condition, especially with a bright red copper color, can be worth several dollars or more. In the highest grades, where the coin is nearly perfect, values can climb even higher. Then there are error coins. These are the real hidden gems. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes happen. These can include double dies, where the design appears slightly duplicated, or off-center strikes, where the image is not properly aligned. Some 1964 D pennies have been found with such errors, and these can be worth significantly more than standard coins. For example, a well-preserved 1964 D penny with a strong strike and full original luster might sell for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100, depending on its grade. Error coins, however, can fetch even higher prices. Some collectors have paid hundreds for unique or rare variations, especially when the error is clearly visible and authenticated. One of the most exciting aspects of coin collecting is that these valuable pieces can still be found in everyday places. People have discovered rare pennies in old jars, piggy banks, or even loose change. It's that possibility that keeps collectors searching. But how do you know if your 1964 D penny is real or valuable? First, check the mint mark. It should be a small, clear D located just below the date. If it looks unusual, blurry, or tampered with, it might not be authentic. Next, examine the coin's color. Original copper coins often have a reddish tone when they are well preserved. Over time, they may turn brown due to oxidation. A bright red coin in excellent condition is usually more valuable. You should also look closely at the details. Are Lincoln's features sharp and well-defined? Are the letters crisp? The sharper the details, the higher the potential grade. If you suspect an error, compare your coin to verified examples online or consult a professional grading service. Weight can also be a clue. A genuine 1964 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels significantly lighter or heavier, that could be a sign of a counterfeit or altered coin. Interestingly, while 1964 pennies are common, the year itself holds special significance. It was the last year before major changes in U.S. coin composition. In 1965, the mint removed silver from dimes and quarters, marking a major shift in American coinage. Although pennies remained copper-based for a while longer, 1964 represents the end of an era in many ways. There are also some surprising facts about this coin. For instance, because of the coin shortage, the mint continued producing 1964 dated coins even into 1965. This means that some 1964 pennies were actually struck later than their date suggests. It's a small detail, but one that adds to the coin story. Another interesting detail is how collectors categorize these coins by color. You may hear terms like red, red-brown, and brown. These refer to how much of the original copper color remains. Fully red coins are the most desirable, especially in higher grades, because they are closer to their original appearance. So why do collectors still love the 1964 Lincoln penny today? Part of the appeal is accessibility. Unlike extremely rare coins that cost thousands or even millions, this is a coin that almost anyone can find and collect. It serves as an entry point into the world of numismatics. At the same time, the possibility of finding a high-grade or error version adds an element of excitement. There is also a sense of history attached to it. This coin was produced during a time of change in the United States, both economically and socially. Holding it is like holding a small piece of that era. For experienced collectors, the challenge lies in finding the best examples. A perfectly preserved 1964 penny with full red color and sharp details is not easy to come by. That challenge keeps the hunt alive. And then there's the simple joy of discovery. The idea that something so ordinary could turn out to be valuable is deeply appealing. It reminds us to look closer at the things we often overlook. So the next time you come across a handful of pennies, take a moment to check the dates. Look for that small D under the year 1964. Examine the color, the details, and the overall condition. You might not strike gold, but you could uncover a coin that's worth far more than its face value. Because in the world of coin collecting, value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the smallest details, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now isn't just spare change, but a small piece of history that could be worth far more than 1 cent? Most people overlook it, toss it aside, or spend it without a second thought. But hidden among billions of ordinary coins is one that tells a fascinating story: the 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, the 1981 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American coinage for generations. But when you take a closer look, especially at coins from this year, you start to notice subtle details that make certain versions stand out. And one of the most commonly misunderstood features is the absence of a mint mark. To understand why this matters, we need to go back to 1981. This was a transitional period for U.S. coin production. The United States Mint was still producing pennies primarily made of copper, but rising metal costs were creating pressure. By the following year, in 1982, the composition of the penny would change dramatically from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. So 1981 sits right at the edge of a major shift in coin history. During that time, pennies were produced at multiple mint facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver. Coins minted in Denver carried a small D mint mark, while coins from Philadelphia traditionally had no mint mark at all. That's right, no mint mark doesn't mean something is missing. It actually tells you that the coin was made in Philadelphia, which was the original mint of the United States. So when you see a 1981 Lincoln penny without a mint mark, you are looking at a coin struck in Philadelphia. And while that may sound common, there's more to the story. In 1981, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 7 billion Lincoln cents that year. That means the majority of 1981 pennies you'll find will have no mint mark. On the surface, that makes them seem extremely common. And in most cases, they are. But here's where things get interesting. Not all 1981 no mint mark pennies are created equal. Within that massive number of coins, there are subtle variations, conditions, and even rare errors that can turn an ordinary penny into something much more valuable. Let's talk about the physical features first. The 1981 Lincoln penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving it that rich, warm, reddish-brown color when well preserved. It weighs about 3.11 grams, which is slightly heavier than modern pennies. On the front, you'll see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, along with the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1981 to the right. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, making this one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. Now let's talk about what makes some of these coins valuable. Condition is everything. A 1981 no mint mark penny that has been circulating for decades, scratched, worn, and discolored, is usually worth only its face value or slightly more. But if you find one in uncirculated condition, with sharp details and original luster, the value can increase significantly. Collectors often look for coins graded MS65 or higher, which means they are in near-perfect condition. In these grades, a 1981 no mint mark penny can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on its eye appeal. But the real excitement comes from error coins. Mint errors are like accidents during the coin-making process, and they can make a coin extremely desirable. In 1981 pennies, collectors have discovered examples with double dies, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during striking. These can be subtle, often visible in the lettering or numbers, but they can increase the coin's value dramatically. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly aligned, and clipped planchets, where part of the coin is missing due to a cutting error. These unusual features turn a common penny into a one-of-a-kind collectible. Some high-grade error coins from 1981 have sold for hundreds of dollars. Even minor errors can attract attention from collectors who are always searching for something unique. Now let's look at real-world values. A typical circulated 1981 no mint mark penny might be worth 1 to 5 cents. Not very exciting, but an uncirculated example in excellent condition can sell for anywhere from $5 to $20. If the coin is professionally graded and shows exceptional quality, it can reach even higher prices. Error coins are where things really jump. Depending on the type and visibility of the error, prices can range from $50 to several $100s. In rare cases, especially with strong doubling or dramatic mint mistakes, values can go even higher at auction. So how do you know if your 1981 penny is worth more than face value? Start by checking the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. If there is no letter, it was minted in Philadelphia. That's normal for this year, but it's the first step. Next, examine the condition. Is the coin shiny with clear details? Or is it worn and dull? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Pay attention to the lettering, especially "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." Look for doubling, unusual spacing, or anything that seems off. Check the edges and the overall shape of the coin. Also, weigh the coin if possible. A genuine 1981 copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter, it could be damaged or altered. One important thing to remember is that fake coins do exist, but they are less common for lower-value coins like the 1981 penny. Most issues come from damage or misidentification rather than intentional counterfeiting. Still, if you believe you have a rare error or a high-grade coin, it's a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional grading service. Here's a fun detail that many people don't know. The Lincoln Memorial design on the back of the penny was used for nearly 50 years. from 1959 to 2008. That means the 1981 penny is part of a long-running design era that millions of Americans grew up with. It's a small but meaningful piece of everyday history. Another interesting fact is that because 1981 was just before the switch to zinc pennies, collectors often compare coins from this year to those from 1982. It's like looking at the end of one chapter and the beginning of another in U.S. coinage. So why do collectors still care about a coin that seems so common? The answer is simple. Coins like the 1981 no-mint mark penny are accessible. You don't need thousands of dollars to start collecting them. You might already have one in your possession. And within something so ordinary, there's always the possibility of discovering something extraordinary. Collectors love the hunt. They love searching through rolls of coins, examining each one closely, hoping to find that hidden gem. And the 1981 penny is a perfect example of how even the most common coins can hold surprises. It also represents a moment in time, a snapshot of American history, economics, and craftsmanship. Every scratch, every detail, every variation tells a story, so the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that missing mint mark. Examine the details. Because sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. And who knows, the next time you reach into your pocket, you might be holding more than just 1 cent. You might be holding a piece of history that's been waiting for you to notice it all along. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now, the one you almost ignored, could be worth far more than just 1 cent? Not because it's made of gold, not because it's ancient, but because of something so small most people never even notice it. Today, we're talking about the 1991 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. A coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, the 1991 penny looks completely ordinary. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American currency since 1909. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. Nothing about it seems rare, unusual, or valuable. But here's where things get interesting. When you don't see a mint mark on a Lincoln penny, it actually tells a story. Most people assume that no mint mark means something is missing or wrong. In reality, it simply means the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. For many years, coins from Philadelphia did not carry a mint mark at all. So, a 1991 penny without a mint mark is not automatically rare. However, and this is the part collectors pay close attention to, within these ordinary coins can exist extraordinary variations, errors, and high-grade examples that can turn a 1-cent coin into something worth real money. To understand why, we need to go back to 1991. That year, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies. The economy was growing, cash transactions were still dominant, and the penny remained an essential part of daily life. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 4 billion Lincoln cents that year. That's a massive number, which means most of these coins are extremely common. But in the world of coin collecting, rarity is not just about how many were made. It's about how many survived in exceptional condition and how many have unique characteristics. The 1991 penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition had been used since 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to change the metal content. Because of this, these coins are lighter than older pennies and can wear down differently over time. Now let's talk about the design. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner. It's a simple, powerful image that has remained unchanged for decades. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right, the date 1991. If there's no mint mark under the date that confirms it was minted in Philadelphia, on the reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. If you look very closely, you can actually see a tiny depiction of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. It's one of the few coins in the world where the same person appears on both sides. So, if billions were made, why do collectors care? The answer lies in condition and errors. Most 1991 pennies you find in circulation are heavily worn. They've been used in transactions, carried in pockets, dropped, scratched, and exposed to the elements. These coins are usually worth only face value. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, the value can increase dramatically. Coins that have never been circulated with sharp details, bright luster, and no visible damage are much harder to find than you might think. Then there are errors. Errors happen during the minting process, and they can transform an ordinary coin into something special. For the 1991 penny, collectors have reported several types of errors, including off-center strikes, double strikes, and die cracks. One of the most sought-after types is a double die error. This occurs when the design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a visible doubling effect on letters or numbers. While not extremely common for 1991, if you find a clear double die, it can significantly increase the coin's value. Another interesting error is the broad strike, where the coin is struck without the collar that normally holds it in place. This causes the coin to spread out and appear slightly larger than usual. There are also coins with misaligned dies, where the front and back designs don't line up properly. These small differences can make a big impact in the collector market. Now let's talk about real value. A typical circulated 1991 penny with no mint mark is worth exactly 1 cent. But a high-grade example, graded by a professional service, can sell for much more. Coins graded MS65, which means they are in excellent uncirculated condition, can sell for a few dollars. But when you reach MS67 or higher, the value can jump significantly. Some top-condition 1991 pennies have sold for over $100, simply because they are so well preserved. And if you combine high grade with a noticeable error, the price can climb even higher. Certain error coins from this year have sold for several $100s at auction, depending on their uniqueness and condition. So, how do you know if your penny is worth more than 1 cent? First, check the date and mint mark. Make sure it says 1991 and that there is no letter under the date. Next, examine the condition. Look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair and the Lincoln Memorial. A shiny surface with no scratches or discoloration is a good sign. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Check the lettering for doubling, inspect the edges for unusual shapes, and make sure the design is properly aligned. Weight can also help. A standard 1991 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's significantly different, it could indicate an unusual planchet or error. Be cautious of damage. Scratches, corrosion, and environmental damage can sometimes look like errors, but they actually reduce value. One important thing to remember is authentication. If you believe you have a valuable coin, consider having it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. This not only confirms its authenticity but also gives it an official grade, which can increase its market value. Now here's a fun fact that surprises many people. Even though billions of 1991 pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is incredibly difficult. Most were used heavily and never preserved. That's why collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins that somehow avoided circulation and remained untouched for decades. Another interesting detail is how people often overlook these coins entirely. Because they are so common, they rarely get a second glance. Yet, hidden among them could be a rare error or a pristine example waiting to be discovered. This is what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's like a treasure hunt where the treasure is already in your hands. Collectors love the 1991 no mint mark penny not because it is obviously rare, but because it represents opportunity. It reminds us that value is not always visible at first glance. Sometimes, the smallest details make the biggest difference. It also connects us to history. Every coin has passed through countless hands, been part of everyday transactions, and witnessed moments we'll never know. Holding a 1991 penny is like holding a tiny piece of the past. And in today's world, where digital payments dominate, these coins are becoming less common in daily use. That only adds to their appeal. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date, examine the details, and ask yourself, could this be more than just 1 cent? Because sometimes the most ordinary things hold the most extraordinary stories. And who knows, the next valuable coin might already be in your pocket, just waiting for you to notice it. Imagine pulling a simple penny from your pocket and realizing it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's gold, not because it's ancient, but because of something almost invisible. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin millions have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, the 1994 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and easy to overlook. Most people wouldn't even think twice before spending it. But in the world of coin collecting, even the most common-looking coins can carry hidden value, and this one is no exception. The 1994 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1994, this coin had already been in circulation for over 85 years, making it one of the most recognized coins in American history. The design remained largely unchanged, featuring Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Now here's where things get interesting. When people hear no mint mark, they often assume it means something rare or unusual. But in this case, it's actually the opposite, at least at first. In 1994, pennies were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver carry a D mint mark, and San Francisco coins usually have an S. But coins made in Philadelphia traditionally had no mint mark at all. So a 1994 penny without a mint mark simply means it was produced in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia produced a lot of them. Over 6.5 billion pennies were struck there in 1994 alone. That's billions with a B. So if you're holding a standard 1994 no mint mark penny, you're holding a piece of history, but not necessarily a rare one. However, this is where many collectors make a mistake. They assume that because most of these coins are common, all of them are. And that's simply not true. What separates a regular penny from a valuable one often comes down to condition and errors. Let's start with condition. Most 1994 pennies have been in circulation for decades. They've been dropped, scratched, worn down, and passed through countless hands. But a small number were preserved in near-perfect condition, often called mint state. These coins show little to no wear, and their original shine is still intact. In high grades, even a common coin can become surprisingly valuable. For example, a 1994 no mint mark penny in average circulated condition is worth about 1 cent, maybe a few cents to a collector. But in uncirculated condition, especially graded MS65 or higher, it can be worth several dollars. And in extremely high grades like MS67 or above, prices can climb into the tens or even hundreds of dollars. There have been auction sales where pristine examples of this coin sold for over $100, simply because of their exceptional condition. That's a huge jump from 1 cent to triple digits, all based on how well the coin was preserved. But condition is only part of the story. The real excitement comes from errors. Minting errors are what truly capture collectors' attention. These are mistakes made during the production process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something rare and valuable. One of the most sought-after types of errors is the doubled die. This happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a noticeable doubling effect. On a 1994 penny, this might appear in the lettering, especially in words like liberty or in God we trust. Another possible error is an off-center strike, where the design is not properly aligned, leaving part of the coin blank. These coins are visually striking and highly collectible. There are also die cracks, clipped planchets, and other unusual variations that can occur. Each of these errors tells a story of something going wrong during production, and collectors love that. Some error versions of the 1994 no mint mark penny have sold for $50, $100, or even more, depending on the rarity and visibility of the error. The more dramatic and clear the mistake, the higher the potential value. Now you might be wondering, how do you know if your penny is one of these valuable ones? The first step is to take a close look. Use good lighting and, if possible, a magnifying glass. Check for sharp details, clean surfaces, and any unusual features. Look closely at the text and Lincoln's portrait. Do you see any doubling? Any strange marks or misalignments? Next, pay attention to the color. A bright, original red penny is usually more valuable than one that has turned brown over time. Collectors often categorize pennies as red, red-brown, or brown, with red being the most desirable. Weight can also be a clue. A standard 1994 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams, since it's made mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. If the weight is significantly off, it could indicate an error or even a counterfeit. Speaking of counterfeits, they do exist, although they're less common for modern pennies. Still, it's important to be cautious. If something looks too good to be true, it's worth having the coin examined by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm authenticity and assign a grade, which can significantly impact value. Another helpful tip is to compare your coin with verified examples online or in coin guides. Small differences can make a big impact, so careful comparison is key. Here's something surprising. Even though billions of these pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is incredibly difficult. Most were used in everyday transactions and never saved. That means high-grade examples are much scarcer than the original mintage numbers suggest. And that scarcity is what drives value. Collectors are always searching for coins that stand out, even within common series. A 1994 no-mint mark penny might not seem exciting at first, but in the right condition or with the right error, it becomes something special. There's also a psychological aspect. Many collectors enjoy the thrill of the hunt. The idea that a valuable coin could be hiding in a jar, a drawer, or even loose change makes the search exciting. It turns everyday objects into potential treasures. Here's a fun fact. The Lincoln penny was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person's face. Before 1909, American coins typically showed symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. So every Lincoln penny, including the 1994 version, represents a major shift in U.S. coin design history. Another interesting detail is the composition. Since 1982, pennies have been made primarily of zinc, with only a thin layer of copper. This was done to reduce production costs. So while the coin looks like solid copper, it actually isn't. This also means that damage to the surface can reveal the zinc underneath, which sometimes appears as a grayish color. Coins with intact copper plating are generally more desirable. Collectors today love the 1994 no-mint mark penny not because it's the rarest coin ever made, but because it represents opportunity. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight. It also serves as an entry point for new collectors. You don't need thousands of dollars to start. You can begin by searching through your own change, learning as you go, and discovering what makes each coin unique. And who knows? You might come across a high-grade example or a rare error that turns a simple penny into something much more valuable. So the next time you see a 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Ask yourself what story it might be hiding. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest coin can carry a big surprise. And sometimes that surprise is worth far more than 1 cent. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now is worth far more than just 1 cent? What if a small detail, something most people never notice, could turn an ordinary coin into a hidden piece of American history with real value? Today, we're uncovering the story behind the 1997 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions have seen, but very few truly understand. The 1997 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States, carrying the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. The small D mint mark beneath the date tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint. At first glance, it looks like any other penny you might find in loose change, but as we dig deeper, you'll start to see why collectors still pay close attention to this coin decades after it was made. To understand this penny, we have to go back to the late 1990s. In 1997, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies each year. These coins were essential for everyday transactions, even though inflation had already reduced their purchasing power. The Lincoln Cent design had been in use since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. By 1997, the Lincoln Memorial reverse, introduced in 1959, was still in use, showing the iconic building in Washington, D.C. The Denver Mint, marked by the D on the coin, was responsible for producing a massive number of these pennies in 1997. In fact, over 4 billion 1997 D pennies were minted. That number alone might make you think this coin can't possibly be rare or valuable. And in most cases, that's true. But as with many coins, the real story lies in the details. Let's take a closer look at what makes this coin unique. The 1997 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper plating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's profile, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 1997. Just below the year is the small D mint mark on the reverse. The Lincoln Memorial is centered, with the words United States of America and E pluribus unum above and 1 cent below. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln statue inside the memorial, a small detail that many people overlook. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1997 D pennies are common, certain variations and errors can make specific coins much more valuable. Collectors often search for coins with minting errors, because these mistakes are rare and unique. One of the most talked about errors in 1997 D pennies is the double die error. This happens when the coin is struck with a die that has a slight misalignment, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. This doubling is often visible in the lettering or the date. Another error to watch for is off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin, leaving part of it blank. There are also coins with die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the surface, and coins with weak strikes, where the design looks faint or incomplete. These imperfections may seem like flaws, but in the world of coin collecting, they can significantly increase a coin's value. So, how much is a 1997 D Lincoln penny actually worth? In average circulated condition, most of these coins are still worth just 1 cent. However, in uncirculated condition, meaning the coin has never been used and still has its original shine, it can be worth a bit more, typically a few cents to a few dollars. But when you factor in errors or exceptional condition, the value can rise dramatically. Some high-grade 1997 D pennies have sold for over $50 to $100, especially those graded by professional services with near-perfect condition. Error coins, depending on the type and visibility of the error, can sell for even more. In rare cases, collectors have paid several $100s for a unique or highly visible error on a 1997 D penny. It's important to understand that condition plays a huge role in value. Coins are graded on a scale, with higher grades indicating better condition. A coin that looks almost brand new with sharp details and no visible wear is far more valuable than one that has been heavily circulated. Now you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 1997 D penny is real or if it has any special value? First, check for the mint mark. The small D below the date confirms it was made in Denver. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for any signs of doubling in the letters or numbers. Check if the design is centered, and see if there are any unusual marks or lines. Using a magnifying glass can help you spot small details that are easy to miss with the naked eye. Also, pay attention to the coin's color and texture. A genuine 1997 D penny should have a copper-colored surface, although it may appear darker if it has been circulated. If you think you've found something unusual, it might be worth having the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can determine the coin's authenticity, condition, and potential value. Here's a fun fact that many people don't realize. Even though pennies are often ignored or left behind, they are one of the most widely collected coins in the United States. The Lincoln penny, in particular, has a special place in American culture. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, and it has remained in circulation for over a century. Another surprising detail is that the cost of producing a penny is often higher than its face value. This has led to ongoing debates about whether the penny should continue to be made. Yet, despite these discussions, coins like the 1997 D penny continue to capture the interest of collectors and historians alike. Collectors love the 1997 D Lincoln penny not because it is rare in general, but because it represents an opportunity. It's a reminder that even the most common objects can hold hidden value. It's a coin that encourages people to look closer, to pay attention, and to appreciate the small details. For many collectors, the thrill comes from the hunt. Searching through rolls of pennies, examining each coin, and hoping to find that one unique piece is an experience that combines patience, curiosity, and excitement. And the 1997 D penny is a perfect example of how that journey can begin with something as simple as pocket change. There's also a sense of connection to history. Every 1997 D penny has passed through countless hands, been part of everyday transactions, and traveled across the country. Holding one is like holding a small piece of the past, a reminder of a specific moment in time. As we come to the end of this story, take a moment to think about the coins you encounter every day. How many times have you ignored a penny, or left it behind because it seemed worthless? What if one of those coins held a detail you never noticed, a small imperfection that made it unique? The next time you come across a 1997 Lincoln penny, don't just see it as 1 cent. Look a little closer. Check the details, because hidden within that tiny piece of metal could be a story, a rarity, or even a surprising value waiting to be discovered. What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now isn't so ordinary after all? What if a single coin, minted in 1998 and missing something most people never even notice, could quietly hold a surprising story, and maybe even real value? Today, we're talking about the 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks just like any other penny. It carries the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. It's a coin most people have handled without a second thought. But hidden in its simplicity is a detail that confuses many collectors and sparks curiosity every single day. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to 1998. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year to keep up with everyday circulation. These coins were made in different facilities, mainly Philadelphia and Denver. Coins from Denver were marked with a small d, while Philadelphia coins often had no mint mark at all, especially for pennies. That's where things start to get interesting. The 1998 penny without a mint mark wasn't a mistake in the traditional sense. It was intentionally produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which, at the time, did not always include a mint mark on Lincoln cents. So technically, a no-mint mark penny from 1998 simply means it came from Philadelphia. But here's the twist. While it's common in one sense, not all 1998 no-mint mark pennies are created equal. Some of them carry subtle differences, rare errors, or exceptional conditions that can make them far more valuable than their 1 cent face value. Let's take a closer look at what makes this coin unique. The 1998 Lincoln penny is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. Since 1982, pennies were no longer solid copper due to rising metal costs. This gives the coin a lighter feel compared to older pennies. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's portrait, a design that has been used since 1909. Above his head is the phrase "In God We Trust," and to the right, the word liberty. The date 1998 sits clearly to the right of Lincoln's image. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that remained in use until 2008. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It's a small detail, but one that has fascinated collectors for decades. So if millions of these coins were made, why do some collectors get excited about a 1998 no-mint mark penny? The answer lies in condition, errors, and rare variations. Most 1998 pennies you find in circulation are heavily worn. They've been passed from hand to hand, used in countless transactions, and exposed to the elements. These are typically worth just 1 cent. But if you come across a 1998 penny in near-perfect condition, something collectors call mint state, its value can increase significantly. Coins graded at the highest levels, like MS65 or above, can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on their appearance and quality. But that's just the beginning. There's a specific variety that has gained attention among collectors known as the wide AM reverse. On the back of some 1998 pennies, the letters A and M in the word America are spaced farther apart than usual. This difference is subtle, but once you see it, it becomes easy to recognize. This wide AM variety was not supposed to appear on circulation coins. It was actually intended for proof coins, which are specially made for collectors. Somehow, a small number of these dies were used in regular production, creating a rare and collectible variation. If you happen to find a 1998 no-mint mark penny with the wide AM spacing, you might be holding something much more valuable. Depending on its condition, these coins have sold for anywhere from a few $100s to over $1,000 in top grades. There have been real auction examples where collectors paid strong prices for these coins. A well-preserved 1998 wide AM penny in high mint state condition has reached impressive values at auction, proving that even modern coins can carry serious collector interest. But before you get too excited, it's important to know how to identify one correctly. Start by looking at the back of the coin. Focus on the word America. If the A and M are almost touching, that's the standard design. If there's a clear gap between them, you may have the wide AM variety. It's best to use a magnifying glass or even your phone's zoom function to get a closer look. Another detail to check is the initials of the designer, which appear near the base of the Lincoln Memorial. These small letters can help confirm authenticity and ensure the coin hasn't been altered. Speaking of authenticity, it's also important to be aware of fakes or altered coins. Some people try to modify coins to make them look like rare varieties. They might attempt to change the spacing between letters or alter surfaces to mimic errors. That's why serious collectors often rely on professional grading services to verify rare finds. If you believe you found a valuable 1998 penny, it's worth having it examined by a trusted expert. A certified coin not only confirms authenticity but can also increase its market value. Now here's something many people don't realize. Even without rare errors, coins from 1998 can still hold value if they are part of a complete collection. Some collectors aim to gather every year and variation of Lincoln pennies, and having clean, well-pressed coins from each year matters. There are also collectors who enjoy searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to find hidden treasures like the wide AM variety. It's a hobby that combines patience, curiosity, and the thrill of discovery. And here's a fun fact. The Lincoln penny is one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. Introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Before that, coins typically showed symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. Another interesting detail is that even though the penny has such a low face value, it costs more than 1 cent to produce. This has led to ongoing debates about whether the penny should continue to exist. Yet despite these discussions, the penny remains a powerful symbol in American culture. So why do collectors love the 1998 no mint mark penny today? It represents something deeper than just money. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious, that something small and overlooked can carry hidden importance. For collectors, it's about the hunt, the knowledge, and the excitement of finding something rare where others see nothing special. It also shows how modern coins can still surprise us. You don't need a century-old coin to find something valuable. Sometimes a coin from the late 1990s can hold just as much intrigue, especially when it carries a rare variation like the wide AM. And perhaps the most exciting part is this. These coins are still out there. They're sitting in jars, tucked into drawers, or moving through everyday transactions. Someone somewhere might unknowingly be holding one right now, so the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the details. Because hidden within that small piece of metal could be a story, a piece of history, or even a surprising opportunity. And who knows, the next coin you pick up might not just be spare change. It might be the start of your own discovery. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and holding something that looks completely ordinary, yet could quietly carry a story worth far more than 1 cent. What if that small copper coin from 2002 is hiding details most people never notice, details that collectors actively search for? Today, we're talking about the 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it seems like just another modern coin. Millions were made, it's still found in circulation, and most people would spend it without a second thought. But once you understand what no mint mark really means and what subtle variations to look for, this coin becomes much more interesting than it appears. The 2002 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running tradition in American coinage. The Lincoln Cent was first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, marking the 100th anniversary of his birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person instead of symbolic imagery. By 2002, the design had been around for decades, with Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. A design introduced in 1959. Now, when we say no mint mark, it doesn't mean the coin is missing something by mistake. In fact, it tells us exactly where the coin was made. U.S. coins are produced at different mints, mainly Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver carry a D mint mark, and San Francisco coins usually have an S. But coins struck in Philadelphia often have no mint mark at all, especially for pennies during that time. So, a 2002 penny with no mint mark was produced in Philadelphia. That alone doesn't make it rare. In fact, billions of pennies were struck that year, and a large portion came from Philadelphia. However, within those billions, There are small variations, errors, and high-quality examples that can make certain coins far more valuable than others. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The 2002 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has that familiar copper color, although over time it can darken or develop spots depending on how it's stored. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, along with the inscriptions "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 2002 on the right. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, and if you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. That level of detail is one of the reasons collectors appreciate this design so much. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 2002 no-mint mark pennies are worth only face value, certain examples can be worth significantly more. The key factors are condition, rarity within condition, and possible minting errors. Coins are graded on their condition, ranging from heavily worn to perfect mint state. A 2002 penny that has been in circulation for years will show scratches, fading, and general wear. But a coin that was never circulated, known as an uncirculated coin, can retain its original shine and sharp details. These are much harder to find, especially in perfect condition. Collectors often look for coins graded MS65, MS66, or even higher. These grades indicate a coin with very few imperfections. A 2002 no-mint mark penny in average condition might be worth just 1 cent, but a high-grade example can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on the market. But condition isn't the only thing that matters. Mint errors can dramatically increase a coin's value. These errors happen during the production process and can include things like off-center strikes, double dies, or die cracks. For example, a double die error occurs when the coin's design is stamped more than once slightly off alignment, creating a noticeable doubling effect in the letters or numbers. If you find a 2002 penny with clear doubling in the date or inscriptions, that could make it much more valuable. Another type of error is an off-center strike, where the coin design is not properly aligned, leaving part of the coin blank. These are visually striking and highly collectible. Even small errors, like die chips or unusual surface marks from the minting process, can attract attention from collectors. There have been real examples of modern pennies like the 2002 selling for more than expected. While most don't reach extremely high prices, exceptional pieces have sold for anywhere from a few dollars to over $20 or $30, especially if they are in near-perfect condition or have a noticeable error. In rare cases, unique error coins can go even higher, depending on collector demand. So how can you tell if your 2002 no-mint mark penny is worth more than face value? The first step is to examine it closely. Look at the surface under good lighting. Check for shine, scratches, and overall condition. A coin that looks almost brand new with sharp details and minimal marks is a good candidate for higher value. Next, inspect the lettering and date. Look for any signs of doubling or unusual shapes. Pay attention to the edges of the letters and numbers. If something looks slightly off or thicker than usual, it might be worth investigating further. Also, check the alignment of the design. If the image seems shifted or off-center, that could indicate an error. Even small irregularities can make a difference. It's also important to compare your coin with verified examples. Online marketplaces, collector forums, and auction listings can give you a sense of what similar coins are selling for. However, be cautious. Not every listing reflects a real sale, and prices can vary widely. If you believe you have a valuable coin, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. These organizations authenticate and grade coins, giving them an official rating that collectors trust. A certified coin often sells for more because buyers know exactly what they're getting. Now let's talk about something many people overlook. Storage plays a huge role in a coin's value. Even a high-quality coin can lose value if it's not stored properly. Exposure to air, moisture, and handling can cause damage over time. Collectors often use protective holders or cases to keep coins in the best possible condition. Here's a fun detail that surprises many people. Even though billions of 2002 pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is actually quite difficult. Most were immediately put into circulation, handled, dropped, and worn down over the years. That means truly pristine examples are much rarer than the original mintage numbers suggest. Another interesting fact is that many people ignore modern coins entirely, assuming they can't be valuable. This creates an opportunity for collectors who pay attention. While others overlook these coins, careful collectors search through rolls of pennies, hoping to find that one exceptional piece. Collectors love coins like the 2002 No Mint Mark penny because they combine accessibility with hidden potential. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start collecting. You can begin with coins you already have, learning to recognize the small details that make a big difference. There's also a sense of discovery. Every coin tells a story, from the moment it was struck at the mint to the many hands it passed through. Some coins remain ordinary, while others stand out due to their condition or unique features. And that's what makes this hobby so engaging. It's not just about money. It's about curiosity, observation, and the thrill of finding something special where others see nothing. So the next time you come across a 2002 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Turn it under the light. Examine the details. You might still find it's just a regular coin, but there's always a chance it's something more. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest details can turn an everyday object into something worth holding onto. And sometimes, the most ordinary coins are the ones hiding the most interesting stories. Imagine pulling a penny out of your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but could secretly be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's made of gold, not because it's ancient, but because of something that isn't even there. No mint mark. Just a simple 2006 Lincoln penny that might be hiding a story most people never notice. Today, we're diving into the 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, it looks like any other modern penny. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and a clean, simple design on the back. But once you start looking closer, the details begin to matter, and those details can change everything. To understand this coin, we need to go back to why it was created in the first place. The Lincoln Cent has been part of American currency since 1909, introduced to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 2006, the design had already been in circulation for nearly a century, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. That alone makes every Lincoln penny part of a much bigger story. In 2006, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies to meet everyday demand. These coins were struck at multiple facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver. Here's where things get interesting. Coins from Denver carry a small D mint mark, but coins produced in Philadelphia traditionally often carry no mint mark at all. So when you see a 2006 penny with no mint mark, it usually means it was made in Philadelphia. At first, that might sound ordinary. After all, Philadelphia produced a massive number of these coins. But in the world of coin collecting, even the most common coin can become valuable under the right conditions. It's not always about how many were made. It's about how many survived in exceptional condition, or how many carry unusual features. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The front, known as the obverse, features Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head, you'll see the word Liberty, and the year 2006 stamped clearly. If there's no small letter under the date, that's your missing mint mark. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. If you look closely enough, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail many people never notice. The composition of the 2006 penny is also worth understanding. Unlike older pennies made mostly of copper, this coin is primarily zinc with a thin copper coating. It contains about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change was made decades earlier to reduce production costs, but it also means these coins are more sensitive to damage, corrosion, and wear. Now here's where things start to get more exciting. While most 2006 no mint mark pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more. The key lies in condition and errors. Collectors use a grading scale to determine a coin's condition. A heavily worn coin might be worth face value, but a coin in near-perfect condition, often called uncirculated or mint state, can be worth significantly more. A pristine 2006 no-mint mark penny with a strong strike and no visible damage can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on demand. But the real treasures are the error coins. These are coins that were struck with mistakes during the minting process. For example, some 2006 pennies show double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated. Others may have off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned. There are also coins with die cracks, unusual textures, or missing details. These errors happen rarely, and that rarity is what collectors are always searching for. A 2006 no-mint mark penny with a noticeable error can sell for anywhere from $10 to $100 or more, depending on the severity and visibility of the mistake. In some cases, exceptionally rare error coins have sold for even higher amounts in online auctions. There have been real examples of collectors discovering valuable pennies in everyday circulation. Imagine going through a jar of loose change and spotting a coin that looks slightly different. Maybe the lettering is thicker, or the image seems doubled. To most people, it's nothing. But to a trained eye, it could be a hidden gem. So how do you know if your 2006 no-mint mark penny is special? Start by examining the coin closely. Look at the date and the area beneath it. If there's no mint mark, you likely have a Philadelphia coin. Next, check the overall condition. Is the coin shiny, with sharp details, or is it worn and faded? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then look for unusual features. Pay close attention to the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. If you notice any doubling, uneven spacing, or strange marks, it could indicate an error. Also check the edges and the alignment of the design. Even small irregularities can make a big difference. It's also important to be cautious. Not every unusual-looking coin is valuable. Damage from circulation, such as scratches or dents, can sometimes look like errors but actually reduce the coin's value. True mint errors usually have a consistent, recognizable pattern that experts can verify. If you believe you've found something special, consider having the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. These organizations specialize in authenticating and grading coins, giving you a clearer idea of what you have. Here's a surprising fact. Even though billions of 2006 pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is not as easy as you might think. Most of these coins have been handled, scratched, or exposed to the elements over the years. That's why collectors are willing to pay more for coins that look like they just came out of the mint. Another interesting detail is how people often overlook modern coins. Many collectors focus on older coins, assuming newer ones can't be valuable. But the truth is, modern coins with unique errors or exceptional quality can be just as exciting to collect. The 2006 no-mint mark penny also represents a moment in the long history of American currency, just a few years before the Lincoln reverse design changed in 2009. That makes it part of the final chapter of the Lincoln Memorial era, adding a layer of historical significance. Collectors today are drawn to coins like this because they combine accessibility with potential. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start searching. You can begin with the coins already in your pocket. That sense of possibility is what keeps people coming back, checking their change, and hoping to find something extraordinary. That there's also a deeper appeal. Coins are more than just money. They are small pieces of history, carried through countless hands, each one with its own journey. A simple penny from 2006 might have traveled across the country, passed through stores, banks, and wallets, before ending up in your hands. And sometimes, hidden among millions of ordinary coins, there's one that stands out. One that tells a different story. One that turns a single cent into something far more valuable. So the next time you see a 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. Because in the world of coin collecting, the smallest differences can lead to the biggest discoveries. And who knows, the next coin you examine might not just be spare change. It might be the beginning of a story worth telling.